There's a type of man walking among us right now who operates on a completely different frequency than everyone else. And what makes him dangerous is not his aggression or his ambition, but his complete indifference to something that controls almost every other person on this planet. While millions of men are desperately seeking approval, constantly checking their phones for validation, and modifying their behavior to fit into social circles, this man has discovered something that Schopenhauer spent his entire life trying to articulate. He's learned that the need for friendship, the desperate hunger for social connection and belonging, is not a sign of being human. It's a chain that keeps you imprisoned in mediocrity. And the moment you break this chain, the moment you genuinely stop needing other people's presence in your life, you become something that society cannot control, cannot predict, and cannot manipulate. You become untouchable in ways that will fundamentally alter every aspect of your existence. Arthur Schopenhauer was a philosopher who understood human nature at a level that made him deeply unpopular during his lifetime, because he refused to tell people the comfortable lies they wanted to hear. He looked at friendship and social connection with brutal honesty and recognized something disturbing. Most of what we call friendship is not genuine connection based on mutual respect and shared values. It's a transaction born from weakness, loneliness, and the desperate need to feel less alone in an indifferent universe. People gather in groups not because they truly enjoy each other's company, but because they're terrified of being alone with themselves. They're running from solitude like it's a disease, when in reality, solitude is the only place where you can truly know yourself and develop real strength. The man who can sit alone in a room with his thoughts, who doesn't need constant stimulation and validation from others, who finds his own company not just tolerable, but genuinely enjoyable. This man has accessed a level of freedom that most people will never experience. Think about your own life for a moment and be brutally honest with yourself. How many of your friendships are actually draining you rather than energizing you? How many of your social obligations are things you genuinely want to do versus things you feel obligated to do because you're afraid of being seen as antisocial or weird? How much of your time, energy, and mental bandwidth is consumed by maintaining relationships that don't actually add any real value to your life? Most men never ask themselves these questions because they're too afraid of the answers. They've been conditioned since childhood to believe that having lots of friends is a sign of success, that being popular means you're winning at life, that the person with the most social connections is somehow superior to the person who prefers solitude. But Schopenhauer would tell you this is exactly backwards, and if you look at the evidence with clear eyes, you'll see he's absolutely right. The uncomfortable truth is that most friendships are based on convenience, proximity, and mutual weakness, rather than genuine compatibility and respect. You became friends with someone because you worked together, lived in the same neighborhood, went to the same school, or shared a temporary circumstance. But once that circumstance changes, most of these friendships evaporate because there was never any real substance holding them together. And even the friendships that do last often survive through obligation and habit, rather than genuine desire to spend time together. You see these people not because you're genuinely excited about it, but because you feel like you should, because you don't want to hurt their feelings, because you're afraid of being alone, or because society tells you that maintaining friendships is what good people do. But here's what nobody tells you. Every hour you spend maintaining relationships that don't genuinely fulfill you is an hour stolen from your own development, your own goals, your own peace of mind. Now, before we go deeper into this, I want to know where this message is reaching across the world. Drop a comment right now telling me what city you're watching from. Because what we're building here is a community of men who understand that true strength comes from within, not from external validation or social approval. Whether you're in Chicago, Berlin, Mexico City, Singapore, or some small town where nobody understands your perspective, I want you to know there are other men on this same journey who are learning to find power in solitude rather than seeking it through social connections. Schopenhauer made a profound observation about what he called the hedgehog's dilemma. Imagine hedgehogs trying to stay warm on a cold winter night. They want to get close to each other for warmth, but the closer they get, the more they hurt each other with their spines. So they're constantly moving closer and farther apart, trying to find the optimal distance where they get some warmth, but don't get hurt too badly. This is exactly what human relationships are like, and most people spend their entire lives trapped in this painful dance. They want connection because loneliness is uncomfortable, but the closer they get to people, the more they experience disappointment, betrayal, judgment, and the exhausting effort of maintaining appearances. So they're constantly adjusting, compromising, and pretending in order to maintain these connections that don't even make them happy. But the man who has learned not to need friends has completely opted out of this exhausting game. He's not trying to find the optimal distance from the hedgehogs because he's realized he doesn't need their warmth. He's generated his own internal source of warmth, his own sense of meaning and purpose that doesn't depend on anyone else's approval or presence. This doesn't mean he's cold or antisocial. It means he's complete on his own. If quality people enter his life who genuinely add value, he might choose to spend time with them, but he's not seeking them out from a place of need or desperation. He's selective rather than desperate, and this changes everything about how people perceive him and respond to him. Let me tell you what happens to your psychology when you genuinely stop needing friends and social validation. First, you stop performing. Most of your interactions with other people involve some degree of performance. You're showing them a version of yourself that you think will be acceptable, likable, or impressive. You're filtering your thoughts, moderating your opinions, and adjusting your behavior to fit what you think they expect from you. This is exhausting, and it prevents you from ever being authentic. But when you don't need their approval, when you're genuinely indifferent to whether they like you or not, you can finally just be yourself without any filters or pretense. And here's the paradox that will blow your mind once you experience it. This authentic version of you that stops trying to please everyone actually becomes more attractive and magnetic than the fake version you were performing before. Second, you stop wasting time on low-quality interactions. The average person spends countless hours every week on social obligations that bring them no joy, no growth, no real connection. Birthday parties for people they barely know, gatherings where everyone is on their phones, conversations that never go deeper than surface-level small talk about weather and sports, maintaining friendships out of guilt rather than genuine desire. When you stop needing these connections, you suddenly have enormous amounts of time and energy to invest in things that actually matter. Your own goals, your own development, your own interests and passions. You become ruthlessly efficient with your time because you're no longer giving it away to people who haven't earned it. Third, you stop being controlled by peer pressure and social expectations. Think about how many decisions in your life are influenced by what your friends think, what your social circle expects, what the people around you are doing. Most men never pursue their real dreams because their friends would think it's weird or risky. Most men settle into mediocre careers and lifestyles because that's what everyone around them is doing. Most men never develop their unique perspectives and ideas because they're too busy conforming to the group consensus. But the man who doesn't need friends is immune to all of this. He makes decisions based purely on what he thinks is right, what serves his goals, what aligns with his values. He's not asking for permission or validation from anyone. He's charting his own course regardless of what anyone else thinks about it. Schopenhauer believed that most people are intellectual prisoners of their social environment. They think the thoughts that their friends think. They adopt the opinions that are acceptable in their social circle. They pursue the goals that society tells them they should want. They're not actually living their own lives. They're performing a script that was written for them by other people. But solitude, genuine comfort with being alone, breaks this programming. When you spend significant time alone with your own thoughts, away from the constant noise and influence of other people, you finally have space to figure out what you actually think, what you actually want, what you actually believe. This is terrifying for most people, which is why they avoid solitude at all costs. They fill every moment with podcasts, music, social media, anything to avoid being alone with themselves. But the man who embraces solitude discovers something incredible. He finds out who he really is beneath all the social conditioning and programming. Let's talk about what makes this man untouchable, because that's a specific word I chose carefully. When you don't need friends, you can't be socially manipulated. Think about how much control other people have over you right now through your need for social acceptance. You can't speak certain truths because people might judge you. You can't pursue certain paths because people might think you're crazy. You can't cut off toxic relationships because you're afraid of being alone. You can't enforce boundaries because you don't want to create conflict. Every one of these limitations exists because you need something from other people, their approval, their company, their validation. But remove that need, and suddenly all these forms of control evaporate. You become dangerous to anyone trying to manipulate you because you have nothing they can threaten and nothing they can offer that you desperately want. Schopenhauer observed that the wise man seeks not pleasure but the absence of pain, and one of the greatest sources of pain in human life is other people. They disappoint you, betray you, judge you, misunderstand you, waste your time, and create drama and complications in your life. Now, obviously, not all people are like this, and I'm not suggesting you become a hermit who avoids all human contact. What I'm saying is that when you stop needing friends, when you're perfectly content with solitude, you can be much more selective about who you allow into your life. You're not collecting friends like trophies to prove you're socially successful. You're carefully curating a very small circle of people who genuinely add value to your life and who share your values and vision. Quality over quantity becomes your standard, and this dramatically reduces the amount of interpersonal pain and drama you have to deal with. There's also a deeper level to this that Schopenhauer understood about human nature and suffering. He believed that much of human suffering comes from what he called the will, this blind, striving force that drives us to constantly want things, need things, pursue things. And one of the strongest manifestations of this will is the need for social connection and validation. We're biologically programmed to seek belonging to the tribe, because throughout most of human history, being expelled from the tribe meant death. So this need for social acceptance is literally hardwired into our nervous systems at a primal level. But we no longer live in that world. You don't need the tribe to survive anymore. You can be completely alone and still have food, shelter, safety, and access to everything you need. Yet most men are still operating on that ancient programming, desperately seeking tribal approval that they don't actually need. Breaking free from this programming is one of the most liberating things you can do. When you genuinely don't need friends, you start to see social dynamics with complete clarity, because you're no longer a participant caught up in the game. You're an observer watching from outside. You see how much of human interaction is just status games and power plays. You see how people form alliances not based on genuine affection, but on mutual benefit and protection. You see how quickly people will abandon their supposed friends when it's convenient, or when a better opportunity comes along. You see the performative nature of most social media friendship, where people are just collecting likes and comments to feed their egos. And once you see all of this clearly, you can never unsee it. You realize that what most people call friendship is actually just mutual use with some emotional attachment sprinkled on top to make it feel more meaningful than it really is. Now, I know what some of you are thinking right now. You're thinking, this sounds lonely. This sounds sad. This sounds like a recipe for isolation and depression. But that reaction comes from your conditioning, from your programmed belief that you need other people to be happy. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you felt truly at peace? Not distracted, not entertained, not validated, but genuinely at peace with yourself and your life. For most men, the answer is never, or they can't remember. Because peace requires solitude. It requires the absence of external demands and expectations. It requires space to just exist without performing or producing or pleasing anyone. The man who has learned to be alone has access to this peace whenever he wants it. He's not dependent on external circumstances or other people's presence to feel okay. He's okay by default, and everything else is optional addition rather than necessary requirement. Schopenhauer said that a man can be himself only so long as he is alone, and if he does not love solitude, he will not love freedom. For it is only when he is alone that he is really free. Think about how profound that statement is. Every time you're with other people, you're adjusting yourself to fit the social context. You're monitoring how you're being perceived. You're managing impressions. You're being the version of yourself that's appropriate for that situation. None of this is freedom. Freedom is being able to think whatever you want, say whatever you want, do whatever you want without fear of judgment or social consequences. And that freedom only exists in solitude, or with people who have earned such complete trust that you don't have to perform around them anymore, which is extraordinarily rare. The untouchable man that Schopenhauer describes has achieved something that most people consider impossible. He's broken his psychological dependence on external validation and social connection. This doesn't happen overnight, and it's not easy. It requires you to sit with uncomfortable feelings of loneliness and push through them until you discover that on the other side of loneliness is solitude, and solitude is not loneliness at all. Loneliness is the painful feeling that something is missing. Solitude is the peaceful recognition that you are complete. Most people never make this transition because they run from the discomfort of loneliness back into shallow social connections that temporarily numb the pain, but never actually resolve it. They're addicted to social interaction, the same way some people are addicted to substances, using it to avoid dealing with themselves. Let me tell you what your life looks like when you successfully make this transition. You wake up in the morning and you're not immediately checking your phone to see if anyone messaged you or liked your posts. You're not seeking that little hit of validation to start your day. You're complete already. You make decisions throughout the day based purely on what's best for you and your goals, not on what will make you look good to others or what your friends will think. You say no to social invitations without guilt or elaborate excuses because you don't owe anyone an explanation for how you spend your time. You have long stretches of solitude where you're working on projects that matter to you, developing skills, thinking deeply about questions that interest you, and you're not lonely during this time. You're energized and fulfilled by it. When you do interact with people, you're fully present and authentic because you're not performing or seeking validation. You can speak uncomfortable truths because you're not afraid of social consequences. You can set firm boundaries because you don't need their approval. You can walk away from any interaction or relationship that doesn't serve you because you're not desperately clinging to connections out of fear of being alone. This makes you incredibly magnetic to high-quality people who are tired of the fake performative friendships that dominate modern social life. The people who do become part of your life are there because of genuine compatibility and mutual respect, not because of need or obligation or proximity. These relationships are dramatically higher quality than what most people experience because both parties are choosing to be there rather than needing to be there. Schopenhauer also understood that intellectual and creative work requires solitude. Every great thinker, artist, writer, and innovator throughout history has spent significant amounts of time alone. This is not a coincidence. Original thinking cannot happen when you're constantly consuming other people's thoughts and opinions. Creative work cannot happen when you're constantly interrupted by social obligations and digital communications. Deep focus cannot happen when part of your mind is always monitoring social dynamics and seeking validation. The man who has embraced solitude has access to levels of productivity and creativity that socially dependent people simply cannot reach. While they're distracted by maintaining their social media presence and managing their various friendships, he's producing work that actually matters and building things that will outlast him. There's also a spiritual dimension to this that Schopenhauer explored extensively in his philosophy. He believed that the ultimate goal of human existence is to transcend the will, to stop being driven by these constant needs and desires that keep us in a state of perpetual dissatisfaction. And one of the most powerful ways to do this is through what he called the negation of the will, essentially learning not to want things, not to need things, not to be driven by these compulsive forces. When you learn not to need friends and social validation, you're practicing this negation of the will. You're training yourself to be content without external inputs. This is a form of spiritual development that most people never even attempt because they're too busy chasing the next hit of validation or the next social experience. Now let's address the obvious question that some of you are probably asking. Does this mean you should cut off all your current friends and become a hermit? No, that's missing the point entirely. The point is not to avoid people. The point is to stop needing people. There's a massive difference between choosing to spend time with someone because you genuinely enjoy their company versus spending time with them because you're afraid to be alone or because you need their validation. The goal is to reach a state where you're completely okay being alone indefinitely. And from that place of completeness, You can choose to include people in your life who genuinely add value, but you're choosing from abundance rather than acting from scarcity and desperation. What I'm describing here is not antisocial, it's selectively social. It's having such high standards for who gets access to your time and energy that most people don't make the cut, and being completely at peace with that reality. It's understanding that your time is the most valuable resource you have, and giving it away to people who don't appreciate it or reciprocate is a form of self-betrayal. It's recognizing that quality relationships are incredibly rare, and most of what passes for friendship in modern society is just mutual distraction and validation seeking dressed up as connection. The untouchable man that Schopenhauer describes has seen through this illusion and refuses to participate in it anymore. Think about the most successful and powerful people you know or know of. Really, think about them carefully. How many of them have large social circles and spend lots of time maintaining friendships? Very few. Most highly successful people have very small circles and spend the majority of their time alone or with just one or two people who truly matter to them. This is not because success made them antisocial. It's because their comfort with solitude enabled their success. While everyone else was out networking and socializing and maintaining appearances, these people were alone in their workshops, studios, offices, and laboratories, doing the deep work that creates real value and achievement. They weren't worried about being popular or likable. They were focused on being excellent and creating things that matter. Schopenhauer would tell you that the person who needs nothing from society is the only person who can truly contribute something valuable to society. Because everyone else is so busy seeking approval and validation that they only produce what they think will be accepted and praised. They're trapped in groupthink, unable to challenge conventional wisdom or explore ideas that might be unpopular. But the person who doesn't need social approval is free to think originally, to pursue truth wherever it leads, to create work that's genuine rather than calculated to please an audience. This is how real innovation and progress happens, through individuals who are comfortable enough with solitude and social rejection to pursue ideas that everyone else thinks are crazy. Let me tell you about the ultimate test of whether you've truly achieved this state of not needing friends. Imagine that tomorrow, you had to move to a new city where you know absolutely no one, and for whatever reason, you're unable to make new friends or social connections there. Would you be okay? Would you be able to build a fulfilling life in that scenario? For most people, the answer is a terrified no. The thought of being socially isolated is one of their deepest fears. But for the man who has done this internal work, who has learned to be complete on his own, this scenario sounds not just tolerable, but potentially liberating. No social obligations, no need to maintain appearances, complete freedom to structure life exactly as he wants it. This is the level of independence and self-sufficiency I'm talking about. Now here's where everything comes together and where I need you to take action. You've watched this far because something in this message resonated with you at a deep level. Maybe you're exhausted from maintaining friendships that don't fulfill you. Maybe you're tired of constantly seeking validation from people whose opinions don't actually matter. Maybe you've started to realize that your fear of being alone is holding you back from becoming who you're capable of being. Whatever brought you here, the next step is making a commitment. Go to the comments right now and write these words. Solitude is my power. Those 4 words, solitude is my power. By writing this and publishing it, you're making a public declaration of your intention to develop this strength. You're joining a community of men who understand that real power comes from within, not from external validation or social approval. And while you're in the comments, hit that subscribe button because this channel is dedicated to philosophical truth that most people are too afraid to speak. Every video I create challenges the comfortable lies society tells you and gives you the uncomfortable truths that actually set you free. When you subscribe, you're not just following content, you're aligning yourself with a movement of men who refuse to live according to other people's expectations and who are committed to developing genuine strength and independence. Turn on notifications so you never miss a video because each one builds on the last, giving you another piece of the puzzle that transforms you from someone who needs approval into someone who is completely self-contained and untouchable. And hit that like button right now because every like helps this message reach more men who desperately need to hear it. There are millions of guys out there right now who are trapped in exhausting social dynamics, maintaining friendships out of obligation, and living for other people's approval without even realizing it. Your engagement with this video helps break through the algorithm and reaches those men at exactly the moment when they're ready to hear this truth. That like button is your way of helping other men find the path to genuine freedom and independence. The next video I'm preparing is going to reveal something even more controversial about a topic that society absolutely forbids you from questioning. What I'm going to share will challenge beliefs you've held since childhood and show you how one particular social expectation has been used to control and limit your potential in ways you never imagined. The men who watch that next video will gain a perspective that permanently separates them from the masses who remain trapped in conventional thinking. You cannot afford to miss it, because once you understand what I'm going to reveal, you'll see your entire life through a completely different lens, and that new perspective will change everything about how you move through the world.